Amazon gave me 500 free AI credits that expired in 30 days, and I built a multiplayer trivia app using Kiro. So in this video, I'm going to cover how the site works, go over the process I took to vibe code the app, or really what I'm dubbing vibe steer Kiro, and then the lessons that I learned along the way. Oh, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Alyssa, and this is The Productive Dev, where I share productivity tips and tricks for developers. This is a different style of video for me, but obviously with AI being everywhere and the term vibe coding being used all the time, I wanted to take a crack at it. But before I show you the working site that I created with Kiro, I want to explain the reason behind vibe coding in the first place. I didn't want to vibe code just to follow a trend. At my current job, we use Laravel, and I'm trying to improve my full stack skills because I am predominantly a front-end developer, but I'm getting the opportunity to do more full stack work. So I thought since Kiro gave me 500 credits, I could use them to build a full stack Laravel app that would help me learn more advanced backend techniques. So I really did this as a learning experience to try and expand my Laravel knowledge. So this isn't just a vibe code, look at what I did, but I really want to show you how I approached it and maybe something that you can use down the road as well. Okay, so now I want to give you a quick demo of what I built. So this is called Trivia Trail, and it's a trivia game site that allows you to play single and multiplayer sessions. And if you notice here, this is our landing page, and you see that we have all this copy that you'd see on a typical landing page. Kiro came up with all of this. I didn't really prompt it or anything. It knows a lot about the specifications about the apps. It was able to fill all this in, like how many questions, how many categories, etc. It's kind of colorful right now because so we're using the open trivia database behind the scenes to give us the list of questions. And I kind of like their logo and how it incorporated these colors. And so I just took a screenshot of this and prompted Kiro to try and make this more colorful because initially it had that kind of standard black and white shad cyan look, which I felt looked a little drab. So I wanted to add some pizzazz to it. And this is kind of what Kiro came up with. Arguably a little too colorful, but it is what it is. I'm just kind of playing around with it. And so the cool part about this is that we have auth workflows. So I can go ahead and log in if I already have an account, which I do. And I can also go in and sign up if I don't have an account. And so we have, like I said, these registration and auth workflows set up for us, which is really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And when we log into the dashboard, we see that we're greeted with this Trivia Trail logo that tells us that we can play in single player or multiplayer mode along with some stats. We also have this sidebar here that we can open and close there. It renders really well in mobile view. We also have this settings page. You can go here and log out from here or go to your settings. It's actually using Laravel starter kit under the hood for a lot of this, which I'll go over the tech stack later. But here I can go ahead and update my profile information. I can change my password. I can set up two-factor authentication if I want to. And I can even change the appearance. Right now, it's using my system settings, but I can go ahead and change it to dark mode if I wanted to do that. A lot of niceties that you get by using the Laravel starter kit. Okay, so I'm going to go back to a single player mode here. And you can see we're greeted with this form. And from this form, we can go ahead and choose a category. So I'm going to say music. You can also choose a difficulty, which will vary the amount of points that get applied. So I'll stick on easy here. And then you can also choose a number of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 so that we can go through this really quickly. And so now I've started the single player game. And so I'm just going to go ahead and click a thing here so we can kind of go through it. And then let's see, the 4 strings on a violin. Okay, so you see the game details, what the category was, how long it took. And one of my favorite parts is kind of this answer breakdown so that I can learn and see, okay, what did I get wrong and why? And what is the actual answer so that, if you want to do trivia in the future, you can actually go ahead and learn these things. So now I can go back to the dashboard here, and the multiplayer mode, I want to show this off to you. This is really my favorite. This is what I've been playing with my husband and my sister. They've been helping me test this out. But the cool part about this is that you can actually create your own room that other players can join. We also show you a list of the games that you've played in the last week, which is pretty cool. So I can go ahead and actually create a room. So similar to how the single player mode, I can go ahead and choose a category. So I'll choose music again. Sure, medium difficulty. We'll say we want 5 questions, 20 seconds per question. And so what this gives me is a room code that I can share out to my friends or family. And so I can go ahead and copy this and share it to somebody. And so what I'm going to do is I'm logged in as my sister on the side here. And so I'm going to actually have her go and join the room. And then you can see in real time what happens. And so what this is using is it's pulling every 2 seconds, I think. And so you'll notice here on the screen is that it's going to update. I did not refresh the page, and it updated automatically because it saw that, okay, we're both in the same room and ready to play. And if you notice, the start game button was disabled initially, but once a additional player joined, it now allows me to start the game. So I'm going to go ahead and start the game so you can kind of see the multiplayer view. Remember, we clicked 20 seconds. It's also started on the other screen. So I'm just going to go really quickly, answer the question here. And so the nice part about it is that it auto advances. So if you don't answer a question in time, it'll just automatically move you on to the next question so that you're not sitting there forever. And it creates this kind of like good tensions that like, oh crap, I need to answer like right now. So now we're on the results screen and it's letting me know that it was a tie. You both got 20 points. And again, we see the game details here and we see our answer breakdown. So you can kind of have bragging rights and be like, how'd you get this wrong? But I like this answer breakdown because it allows me to see, okay, this is what the correct answer was. This is what I did. So it's just a kind of a fun way to be able to see things. You can go back to the lobby. And again, we can see that now this most recent game that we played is now visible here. And I can click back into the view the game results if I want. Okay, so now I want to go over the main tech stack. And if you remember in the intro, I mentioned that I am trying to learn Laravel because that's what we use at work. And so naturally, I reached for the Laravel starter kit. And the cool thing about the starter kit is that it gives you a lot out of the box. And I am a React developer, so I use the React starter kit. But if you use Vue or Livewire, you can use that. So one really cool thing about it is that it gave me the authentication out of the box. So if you remember, I had the ability to log in and register a user. That was all provided in the starter kit. So it has this built-in Laravel authentication right here. It also gives you things like this custom dashboard. So if you saw when I was showing you how I could toggle the settings panel there, that all came there. And then how I also gives you like user settings. So that was how I was able to update my profile information, like update my password, set up two-factor auth if I wanted to, delete my account. All those things are provided from the starter kit because it sets you up with like a users table in your database, all these kind of things. It has, some configurable layouts. It uses TypeScript as well. It uses shadcn for like the components, which the only thing is that, you kind of get this standard shadcn look if you notice when you logged into the dashboard, but it's really nice because you have all these components already there at your leverage. And then, it also supports light and dark mode. That's how I was able to show you that. And also uses Tailwind for CSS, which is amazing. I love Tailwind. It has a lot of the, it gives you the backend framework, but also gives you a lot of what you would use as a front-end developer. So this is the first time I've really worked with a Laravel starter kit, but it was really cool to get up and running. It handles a lot of the plumbing for you. And then I was able to just prompt Kiro, and it was able to get a jump start from the starter kit and then be able to build new features on top of that. Okay, so before I show you how I used Kiro to create Trivia Trail, I want to actually give you a overview of the Kiro interface in case you're not familiar with it. So first thing you'll be greeted with is this Let's Build screen. Right now I have it open in a new chat session, but if you were to say, open up a new project in Kiro, it would kind of take up the full width of the screen. And it gives you two different options, which are the spec mode here. And spec mode is where it's going to go ahead and think deeper, come up with a plan and requirements and a list of tasks. You would use this for like more comprehensive features that you want to implement. And this is what I used when I was building out Trivia Trail to kind of plan out the architecture and stuff. But there's also a vibe mode where this is more of your kind of like how you work with like a GitHub Copilot or whatever, with chat session on the side. You're trying to ask some quick questions. You're not trying to go through this comprehensive list. You're maybe trying to fix one little thing here or there. That's when you would use vibe mode. But like I said, I use spec mode when building out Trivia Trail. The next part of the Kiro interface that I want to show you is the agent steering section, which if you look right here in the bottom left-hand corner. So according to the Kiro docs, steering gives Kiro persistent knowledge about your workspace through markdown files. So instead of you having to explain your conventions in every single chat interface, Kiro uses these steering files to consistently follow your established patterns, libraries, and standards. And this leads me to the first tip that I have with using Kiro, or I guess these AI tools in general, is I would highly suggest starting from an existing project. Having an existing project makes it so that Kiro and these AI tools can have a good baseline to expand from. Yes, a lot of these tools can scaffold out new projects for you and install dependencies, etc. But it's really not that hard to do, especially these days with these, CLI scripts that you can just run that create a whole thing. I think when you give it a starting point, it makes it so that the AI can easily parse through the project and figure out what the structure should be instead of trying to do that and decide the architecture at the same time. Kiro specifically will generate three what they call foundational steering files. Those are three markdown files. This is a product markdown file. This kind of describes just an overview of what your product is. If you notice here, it talks about how it's a Laravel React Starter Kit app, it's a full stack application, etc. It did that because I went in and scaffolded out the Laravel Starter Kit before using Kiro. There's also the structure markdown file, which just explains kind of the general structure of the project, where components live, other parts, migrations, etc. And then there's like this tech part. And again, it just took what Iterating knew from parsing through the Laravel Starter Kit project that I scaffolded and was able to glean, okay, we're using Rec 19, PHP 8.2, etc. And so this product structure and tech markdown files are what Kiro created when I went through this, when it first kind of parsed through my new project. But you're also able to create your own steering files, which I think is pretty cool. And I actually have two here, which is this PRD single player. So PRD standing for product requirements document, and then this PRD multiplayer. So Kiro will give you these three foundational steering files, but it's really neat that you're able to create your own and steer the agent even further. Okay, so the next part of the Kiro interface that I want to show you is this section called Agent Hooks, which is in the middle on the left-hand side here. So this is where you can create custom hooks that will get triggered based on different scenarios. So as you can see here, I have a Git learning tracker that I set up to run manually that will look at my last commit and try and generate some kind of learning notes. But you can also do things like have a hook that triggers on a file save or when a file is deleted. So for example, if you wanted to, if when you updated a file, you could run prettier automatically or whatever, that's something there. Even though a lot of the IDEs will do that for you, that's something you could set up. But this agent hook section is just really where if you want Kiro to run something in the background based on an action taking place, this is where you would define it. Okay, so the last part of the Kiro interface that I want to show you is the specs section, which is here in the top left-hand corner. Specs are what you use to instruct Kiro how to implement new features or tweak existing functionality. So when specs are generated, it will go through the process of generating three main markdown files. And so as you can see here, I have a myriad of different specs. Right now I am clicked on the question review. So this is the part of the app where I showed you where when you finish a round of trivia, you would see like, hey, these are the questions I got wrong, breaking down the answers, how many points you got, etc. I created a spec for this because this was ideas I thought of after I created the initial multiplayer mode. And so the first document that it will do as it's generating this spec is this requirements markdown file. You see we have an introduction, a glossary. Kiro generated all of this. Like I definitely gave it instructions, but it took what I gave it and then created this requirements document. And the cool part about it is that Kiro will like confirm with you before it moves on to creating the next markdown file. So it's constantly asking you like, hey, do you approve of this? And you can go in and manually edit the markdown file, or you can prompt Kiro and be like, no, I actually want it like this. And it will go in and update the requirements file. The decision is yours, but it really wants to make sure it has your buy-in before it moves on to the next part. And the more specific and accurate you are in your description and explanation, the better Kiro will be at implementing things. So the next markdown file it'll generate is this design document. Again, it takes the feature that you want to implement. So in this case, the question review, notice how it's looking at, okay, well, we want to have this page rendered with inertia. Again, Kiro generated all of this. I kind of did a quick glance through, made sure it seemed solid. So it's kind of design markdown is kind of like the architecture of how it's going to accomplish implementing the feature. And then last but not least is this task list that it will create. And it's really just an implementation plan of all the steps it's going to take to accomplish this spec. And as you can see, it can go in and cross things off. There are optional things too. Like a lot of times Kiro will give you, let me see me go to a different one here, like the game history task list. It'll have like tests. It'll ask you if you want that to be required or optional. In this case, I made test optional. So it's kind of like grayed out here, but you could go in and say start task and Kiro would go in and start kicking that off. I think what I really like Kiro is that it works with my brain. Like I get a clear idea of, okay, this is what it's going to do. This is what it's going to do next. You can have Kiro kick off like multiple tasks at once. I tend to go one by one because I want to vet things before it moves on, but it can run things in the background. I would say that using the spec mode, it might be a bit overkill if you're just trying to implement like a very simple fix. But for something like this, where I'm trying to build a single player and multiplayer app with a lot of different layers and complexities, I split things up across different specs, and then it then generated its own task list. Try and have your AI agent do like small parts of larger feature sets. So I wanted a multiplayer and single player trivia app. Sure, I could have prompted Kiro to just do that in one go, but it would make a lot of mistakes. So instead, what I had it do, if you look at my spec docs here, I was just like, okay, so this is just trivia game. This is just the single player trivia game. We have multiplayer. Let's see, multiplayer trivia. So now I was like, okay, now that we have a solid baseline with single player sessions, how do we do multiplayer gameplay? And then it went and did that. Then I wanted to make it so that like the open trivia database allows you to have sessions so that you can mitigate the chance of a user seeing the same trivia question more than once. And so I fed it the documents on that, told it the API endpoint it needed to hit. It set up some caching to be able to handle that, to match what's the open trivia database handles. And so we set up sessions so that now it's unlikely that a user will see the same question. Then I have that question review, which is again where I showed where it gives you the answer breakdown. I made that into a spec. I even had some bugs pop up, and so I even created specs to fix individual bugs. And then the game history, which is on that dashboard page, where you can see like, oh, here are the games that you've played in the last 7 days. So this is kind of how I broke it down. I think it makes it easier not only for you as a developer to kind of see what's going on, but it makes it more digestible for the AI agent to be able to accomplish the task that you're giving it. So if I could give an overview of all the steps I took to build Trivia Trail with Kiro, it would be this. The first thing I did was create a new app using the Laravel starter kit. And what this did is give Kiro a nice foundation that it could then use to generate those foundational steering files. And then once I created the Laravel app and had the foundational steering files, then it was able to create its first spec, which was generically named Trivia Game. And from there, it created the requirements markdown, design markdown, the task lists, etc. And what this did is it allowed Kiro to create the foundation. And so it created, the main front-end components, the dashboard view, set up ShadCN to work with different parts of it, set up the database migrations, the controllers, the eloquent models, all these kinds of things. And then that way, when the single player mode was built and solid, when I wanted to tack on more features like multiplayer, etc., it was able to do so because it had a good foundation. But I only started with single player, right? And kind of a broader thing. And if you remember what I showed you in the spec section, that's where I went in. And like once I kind of remember, I was new to Kiro too. So I was kind of getting a feel of the UI, how it works. And so once I kind of got, did that first shot approach, then I was like, okay, let me get a little more granular here and create specs for the different additional features I want to add, like the session tokens, like the question review, the game history, etc. So this is really just how I took, like the approach I took to implement this with Kiro. And I really enjoyed the process. To wrap things up, I want to go through my reflections and takeaways from this experience. And my first point is that I think this was a really fun experiment. Like, it was cool to be able to build this out in 30 days. I barely wrote any code, and it is both exciting and frightening to see what AI can do with in-depth instructions. My second takeaway is that I think Kiro is my favorite AI tool so far. I learned throughout this process that I actually really like working with Kiro. So I've used a couple different tools by now. I've used Gemini CLI, GitHub Copilot, OpenCode, Warps AI, and I find that Kiro just kind of works with my brain. I don't know, the way it breaks things down. I'm very type A, so it just kind of works for me. I can see how Kiro would be overkill for something like that that is like a really quick and simple task that would take you like 30 minutes or less. Probably doesn't make sense to use Kiro in that use case, so you can maybe use the vibe mode if you wanted to. But I think where it really shines is in these more complex tasks and projects that you want to build that require multiple steps. Kiro can really help you think through what you need to do to complete these tasks, and that can be really helpful. The next point is that I thought it gave pretty good output. Like, the output was really good, but it required a lot of steering. And I think one aspect of the output being so good is that I was very specific in my instructions to the LLM. So I think that's something I'm learning is that, yes, you can vibe code this, but it's a relatively simple application, right? And I am using the Laravel starter kit, which did a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to authentication and stuff like that. So I'm kind of curious to see how vibe coding would have worked with something where maybe I didn't have the application more built out. Like maybe if I use an Next.js or something or another front end stack where like, you know, you kind of have to install your own auth and all that. The nice part about kind of the Laravel ecosystem is that like there's always a tool for everything. It's like really cool. Anyway, but you know, I think for this experiment where I just had to build a little trivia app that uses a public API, a popular public API too, that I can just play with my family and friends. Like, I think this was a very good experiment to kind of see what it can do and also observe its limitations. Another takeaway I have is that to take notes as you're vibe coding so you can actually learn the material. So it's so easy to just let the LLM do everything. But if you actually want to learn and grow as a developer and be able to implement similar features in the future, I think it's helpful to try and take notes. I have like a whole markdown file in the project where I list out all the things I'm learning based on the different tasks and stuff that it completed. So if you, I've transitioned over here, but this is like a learning log. And so I've just added different things here. I have this whole doc section. So single player learning log. I think I was using that agent hook to kind of help me generate some of these things. And then I tweaked it a bit. And then the question review learning log. See, I didn't get very far here. I kind of slowed down on my learning logs as I was going on. But the multiplayer support learning log, just a ton of notes. Have I read through all these? No, but I have it here at my disposal and I can read it when I want to. So that's just something I like to do because yes, vibe coding stuff is interesting and fun and whatever, but like at the end of the day, I want to be able to learn this stuff. And even if I'm not hand coding it myself, I want to try and understand the underlying architecture and approach that the agent took to implement things. And then my last reflection and takeaway is that the site is buggy. Like, I'm mostly playing multiplayer mode, and I found that a frustratingly amount of times when I attempt to start a game, the app will just hang. I later realized after some debugging that this is because this is a limitation in the Open Trivia database. I was selecting a number of questions, like too many questions that the database didn't provide. So, again, not necessarily Kiro's fault, more of a limitation with the API, but that's things I had to go in and learn and debug, right? And so, and the AI didn't know that off the bat. So, and there's some like, you know, CSS spacing issues. I noticed buttons are a little too close to other containers, things like that, UX improvement. So, you know, it's a little buggy and stuff, but that's expected with something that was vibe coded. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to take a different approach to this. Hopefully you found this interesting. I just wanted to show, you know, what I built. If you want to play Trivia Trail, like here's the URL. It's free. You just create an account and do whatever. Right now, it does require that everyone have an account to play. I want to extend it so that only people who want to create games have to create an account, so that it can be more of like a Jackbox Games kind of style where you just post a room code and anyone can join. Thanks for joining me on this vibe coding journey or vibe steering, whatever you want to call it. Again, my name is Alyssa, and this is The Productive Dev, where I share productivity tips and tricks for developers. This, again, was a bit of a different video for me, but I just kind of wanted to show what I'm learning as a developer and how I'm trying to be productive as we navigate this world with AI and LLMs, etc. If you found this video useful, I'd appreciate a like. If you like the content that I'm sharing, I'd also appreciate a subscribe. But I hope this video provided you some value, and I will catch you in the next one.